Berlin-Brandenburg Airport. Picture this. A brand new international airport for Germany's capital city, budgeted at $2 billion, scheduled to open in 2011, designed to handle 27 million passengers a year, and signal Berlin's arrival as a modern European powerhouse. Politicians cut ribbons. Airlines scheduled flights. Passengers booked tickets. The engineering itself is genuinely impressive. 3 terminals, 150,000 square meters of floor space, a direct rail link to Berlin's city center, and infrastructure built to international aviation standards. The bones of a world-class airport are all there. Here's the number that stops everything. The opening was postponed 170 times over 14 years. The problem wasn't ambition. It was a fire safety system so fundamentally miscalculated that 750 workers spent years inside a finished building trying to fix it. Cabling was wrong. Smoke extraction didn't work. Every fix revealed 3 more problems underneath. No single contractor owned the failure, so everyone passed responsibility in circles. The lesson: complexity without accountability is just expensive chaos. When nobody is truly responsible for the whole, everybody becomes responsible for nothing. Scottish Parliament building in 1997. The newly devolved Scottish government needed a parliament building. The estimated cost was $40 million. The site was chosen. The architect was appointed. The timeline was set. Scotland was getting its democratic home for the price of a modest office development. The design by Enric Morales is genuinely striking. Organic forms inspired by upturned boats and the Scottish landscape. A building that actually looks unlike any other parliament on Earth. Architecturally, it earned its awards. The final bill came to $414 million, 10 times the original estimate, for a building covering less than a city block. The core problem was a design process that kept evolving after construction had already started. Changes were approved mid-build, costs were concealed from Parliament, and nobody had full visibility of the total. Each individual decision seemed reasonable. The cumulative effect was catastrophic. The lesson: approving a design and approving a budget are 2 different commitments. When only one of them is fixed, the other will move in only one direction. Boston's Big Dig. Boston's highway system was strangling the city. The solution was audacious: bury the main interstate underground, replace an elevated eyesore with a surface park, and reconnect downtown Boston to its waterfront. The 1980s estimate was $2.6 billion. Congress approved it. Engineers started digging. The infrastructure delivered is genuinely transformational. The Rose Kennedy Greenway replaced a concrete highway with 1.5 kilometers of public parks. Tens of millions of vehicle trips now move underground every year. Boston's downtown is fundamentally more livable because this project exists. The final cost was $24.3 billion, nearly 10 times the original projection, making it the most expensive highway project in American history at the time. Digging under a living city full of centuries-old utilities, unpredictable geology, and active subway lines meant constant surprises with no pause button. Political pressure kept the project moving even when costs exploded. Stopping was never on the table because too much had already been spent. Sydney Opera House in 1957, Danish architect Jørgen Utzon won an international competition to design an opera house for Sydney Harbour. The budget was $7 million Australian dollars. Construction would take 4 years. Australia would have a world-class cultural venue by 1963. What got built is arguably the most recognizable building on Earth. The shell roof structures are genuine engineering breakthroughs that changed how architects think about concrete. UNESCO made it a World Heritage Site. It appears on more postcards than perhaps any structure built in the 20th century. It opened in 1973. The final cost was $102 million Australian dollars, 14 times over budget. A decade late, and Utzon never set foot inside the finished building after being forced off the project mid-construction. The problem was that construction began before the design was resolved. Politicians wanted groundbreaking photos before the engineering was finished. Solutions to structural problems that hadn't been invented yet had to be invented mid-project, on the public's bill. The lesson: starting before you're ready doesn't save time. It just moves the problem forward and makes it more expensive. California High-Speed Rail California approved high-speed rail in 2008 with a voter-backed budget of $33 billion. The promise was a train connecting Los Angeles and San Francisco in under 3 hours, running on renewable energy, reducing highway and airport congestion across the state. The engineering work underway in the Central Valley represents genuine progress. Viaducts, tunnels, and grade separations are being built through some of the most geologically complex terrain in North America. The construction that exists is real infrastructure. The current projected cost is $128 billion. The projected completion date has moved so many times it is no longer taken seriously. Land acquisition across hundreds of miles of private property proved legally and financially catastrophic. Environmental reviews, lawsuits, and local opposition added years to every segment. The original cost estimates assumed a political smoothness that California's real estate landscape made impossible. F-35 fighter jet program in 2001, the United States awarded Lockheed Martin a contract to build the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, one aircraft to replace multiple platforms across the Air Force, Navy, and Marines. The original program cost was estimated at $233 billion. It would be the most capable fighter jet ever built. What exists is genuinely formidable. Stealth capability, sensor fusion, vertical landing variants, and combat systems that represent the leading edge of military aviation. Multiple allied nations have integrated it into their air forces. As a piece of engineering, it is without equal. Total program cost has now passed $400 billion, with lifetime operational costs projected beyond $1.7 trillion. Building one aircraft to satisfy three branches of the military with fundamentally different requirements meant constant design compromises. Every branch needed something slightly different. Every compromise added weight, complexity, and cost. No single requirement was ever sacrificed to protect the budget. Olkiluoto 3 Nuclear Plant Finland approved a new nuclear reactor in 2002. The European pressurized reactor at Olkiluoto would be the first new nuclear plant built in Western Europe in over a decade. Cost, $3 billion. Completion, 2009. It would provide clean baseload power and prove that nuclear energy still had a future in Europe. The reactor that eventually came online is the most powerful in Europe. 1,600 megawatts of carbon-free electricity feeding the Finnish grid. The technology works. The output is real. It took until 2023 to turn on 14 years late. Final cost, approximately $11 billion. No single Western European contractor had recently built a reactor of this design. Skills, supply chains, and regulatory frameworks had all atrophied during the long pause in nuclear construction. Every weld required new certification. Every component required re-engineering. Experience that once existed had simply retired. Sagrada Familia in 1882, construction began on Antoni Gaudí's Basilica in Barcelona. The building would be complete within decades. Barcelona would have its monument. What is being built is unlike anything else in human history. 18 towers, hyperboloid vaulting, stone facades carved with the density of illuminated manuscripts, and a structural system so complex that it required 21st century computational modeling to fully understand God's original intentions. Construction has been continuous for 142 years. Across that span, every decade has produced its own budget reset. No overrun here has a single villain. Wars, the Spanish Civil War destroying God's original models, shifting donation revenue, and the sheer impossibility of the design all contributed. The project has outlived every person who started it, multiple times over. The lesson: some projects aren't over budget. They're simply generational. The error isn't in the spending, it's in pretending from the beginning that a finite estimate could contain an infinite vision.